In this video, I'm going to tell you how you can extend your enjoyment of wargaming. So I have to assume that if you're watching this video, you must like wargaming. Otherwise, you know, welcome. But you know, I assume that you're probably a wargamer. And as you know, probably, if you've been doing it for a while, playing the same wargame over and over and over again is fun. You learn a lot, all that kind of stuff. But eventually, depending on how much you actually get to play, sometimes you can get a little, So what can you do about that? Well, generally, you'll start looking towards things like campaigns, whether they be narrative or otherwise. A lot of games have got campaign information in the book. In Age of Sigmar, the campaign stuff came in the General's Handbook. In the new 8th edition of Warhammer 40,000, there's campaign information in the big, thick, book, the hardcover. But as you know, probably, most wargamers also very frequently have a tendency to think of themselves as kind of a game designer as well, maybe a tinkerer of game design. And because of that, it's not hard to convince you and your friends to decide, hey, let's make our own campaign. Let's extend, let's stop just using the 6 missions that are in the book. Let's start making our own stuff. Let's link it together. Let's forge a narrative, tell a story, and make it, I don't know, epic, let's say. Let's make it cool. Let's not make it terrible. Let's make it cool instead. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Escalation leagues are very popular, where you start out in the game with a small amount of points and you have battles, and then you add more points in each battle to make the forces bigger and bigger and bigger and the battles grander. Those are big at stores where they're trying to get people into the hobby, so you start out small. You don't immediately have to start out with this huge army. It doesn't work as well in skirmish games, but in bigger army games, it works quite well. With skirmish games, it's much easier, more often than not, to do something that's a bit more narrative, because you've got your people, you've got a small amount of figures, and if you've decided, well, we're going to make it so that sometimes when figures die, they stay dead, and when they come back, when you start to play the next game, we now have to figure out how to handle that. That's not as hard. If you lost half of your army in a big 100-figure army, that would be difficult to bring new guys back. But if you've got 6 or 7 guys and you lose 2, you can bring new figures in relatively easily. But it's totally up to you and how you're playing it. One of the biggest issues with campaigns that I've seen is always, well, what happens if someone starts to really just run away with it? What happens if, I win the first game that we play, and then I win the second game, and then, you know what I mean? More often than not, in most campaign games, there's usually some sort of measure of improvement. If you're the winning team in the last game, you get some sort of benefit, and the losing team maybe gets a lesser benefit, or perhaps no benefit. Because of all of that, sometimes you have to be able to make sure to write the rules in a way so that you don't have that problem where maybe if you lose the first 2 games, you're completely down and out. The way they did it in some of the things that I've seen recently is more of a case of, really, it's not until the last game that matters. So even if you've lost all the games running up to it, at the very last game, if you're lucky enough to win, then you win, even though you lost all the previous ones. So things like that. There's plenty of blog posts and articles out there about how to make a good campaign and make it so that it's not too lopsided if someone's, really kind of winning a lot. Now, what if you're one of the very few gamers that I know who actually says, I'm not really interested in game design. I don't want to really dip my toe into it. I would like someone just to actually, write something for me. Someone who's a professional and knows what they're doing, and I would like to buy that product and then use it. If you're one of those people, and I hope you are, because I think that there should be more people out there who are basically making it so that the publishing companies themselves take the time to actually produce these products, and then someone will buy them, and then, it's the circle of life or whatever. If you're into that, having somebody else, i.e. the game publisher, write you the cool extending special rules, then you're in luck, because you're starting to see more and more of it. A lot of the different companies are starting to do that. Sometimes it's a free PDF they put on their website. Sometimes it's a book or something, some other kind of thing that you have to purchase that allows you to extend and change and modify the way your game is played so that you can have campaigns or just interesting kind of like little seeds and things that are added to it. Back in, I think it was 6th edition, our friends over at Games Workshop made Crusade of Fire, and this was basically an entire campaign that had a whole bunch of extra information, extra rules, you know, step by step, game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4, rules for all of it, all that kind of stuff. This was kind of popular for a while, and because it was the old Games Workshop, they only printed about 5 of them, it seems, and then you couldn't get them anymore. So I haven't looked on eBay in a while, but this for a while was going for a good amount. I don't know if it translates to 8th now at this point. It kind of translated to 7th, but this type of book is probably something that we'll be seeing coming soon from Games Workshop. Not like next month, but probably within the next 12 months, we'll see a book or something like this coming out so that you can take the missions that are in the 8th edition, say 40K book, and then do something a little bit different, a little bit more with them. But it's not just books that you can use to extend your wargaming, and it's not just stuff made by Games Workshop. This is called Ulterior Motives, and it's for Frostgrave. It's from Osprey Publishing, Osprey Games, technically. They're their gaming division. They sent me a copy of this. It just came out like last week. And this is really interesting. This is designed for Frostgrave, obviously. But what it is it's a deck of cards. So you have this deck of, I think there's like 40 cards in here. And they're kind of bigger. They're bigger than like a normal playing card. And on each of them is lots of information. And what happens is at the beginning of the game, each player picks a card. And it has special information in it. It might be a reveal, a secret, and they don't share this with their opponent. This is like an extra kind of like win condition, an extra thing that you can do that can affect not only this game, but games going forward, because usually you play Frostgrave in some sort of a kind of a campaign setting as well. That's part of the bonuses of something like Frostgrave, is that you have that sort of extended campaign so that your figures, in most games, you know, most of the games that we play, generally your guys are your guys, your robots are your robots, or whatever, your elves are your elves. But in Frostgrave, your normal henchmen stay the same from game to game to game, but your wizard and your apprentice get smarter, they get more spells and all kinds of stuff like that. These cards really also help to make the games very different than what you're maybe used to in the main Frostgrave book. There's instructions on each one for extra treasures you need to set up on the board, and they even have stuff for, and this is called red herrings. So like if you look at your card, right, and it says, okay, and you read it all and keep it to yourself, and then you go and place like one objective extra on the table, your opponent's going to be like, I have a suspicion that that might be important. But if you lay down 4 of them, 3 of them could be red herrings. So it's kind of a cool concept, and it's random too, because you just, you shuffle the deck and then each player gets a card, and then you don't know what's going to be happening during the mission. All kinds of things like this can really help engage your enjoyment with war games. There are so many people that I know, they get together and play a game of like, I try to kill you and you try to kill me. And that's great when you're starting to learn. It's fine. But as you want to go forward, you want to get more objective type games. You want to get more potentially narrative campaigns, things like that. The missions that come in many of these books are great, and you have a lot of neat things in there. But eventually, if you've played it enough, you want to go past that even more. So you're either going to have to write up your own stuff, or find something else that somebody else wrote and shared for free online, maybe on their blog or whatever. Or you go with something like this, or something, like these. And these will help you kind of increase how much you might enjoy down the long run your wargaming.